Super Cool Radio. Hello everyone, I am Matthew Thomas. This is Super Cool Radio. Have a great guest with me at this time. She's an amazing guitarist and has toured performing at several U.S. military bases in the U.S. and overseas, has performed in support of Pride festivals and LGBTQ plus events throughout the U.S., performed at Lucas Oil Stadium as part of the halftime show. Please welcome J.D. Danner.
Wow, thank you for that intro. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for having me on the show. This is so awesome. I love your show. I've watched some episodes since Liv had booked me on here, so I love what you're doing.
Well, I very much appreciate it. Yeah, my intros are sometimes elaborate depending on how I feel, but I try to give a good amount of information so that people are already introduced and then we can roll with the conversation. But I do appreciate you checking out my show. It means a whole lot to me.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So before we jump into everything, I know, as I said in the intro, we got quite a bit to discuss. But I want to start with this question because I know the pandemic has really changed the world very fast, and we're still obviously adjusting and kind of getting back to somewhat normal. What is one thing you learned about yourself because of the pandemic?
I think the best thing I learned about myself was that I was able to roll with the punches and stay in the business, in the entertainment, the music part of it, because I used that downtime to write a song, which is loosely based on the experience of being in lockdown during the pandemic, and also I started a podcast as a means to reach the audience. So I really learned a lot more about the technology around all of that also, because prior to that, I wasn't using Zoom and I wasn't using anything to reach people beyond local venues. So it's really nice to know that there's a way to literally reach the entire world. I mean, I was playing music from my bedroom, doing a little show on Saturday night during lockdown, and I was getting people saying hello from Italy, hello from England, hello from Russia. Well, maybe not Russia, but Spain and all different parts of the world. And it was just amazing. You know, it was just really nice to see that people were out there uniting during a time when literally the whole world had the same problem.
I definitely agree. And I think it allowed more time. Obviously there's more time to do stuff with the lockdown and stuff, but I think allowed more connection, as you were talking about, with people, especially, maybe not being able to see them physically, but to make connections with all those, different countries outside the U.S. I know I started the podcast right before the pandemic, so I didn't really, I was already kind of equipped to do the Zoom and, what we're doing right now, but it kind of definitely was beneficial when everything happened because I was already set up for it.
Yeah. Yeah, what a great way to expand your audience. You're literally all over the globe.
Exactly. It's kind of cool. I know since I've been doing this, my third biggest audience is Germany. And that kind of surprised me for, being American. I haven't actually traveled outside the U.S. to reach people in Germany. It's just amazing for me.
That is amazing. And actually, I meant to say Germany, not Russia. But on that part of the world, it was just great to be reaching people. And I think that also says something about how music just transcends through language and, and demographics. So it was really, really nice to have that happen and to see that we can go on as a people. People just found a way to continue on.
Definitely. I think a lot of people adapted very quickly, as I just said, doing stuff like this digitally where you can do a lot of things from home, working from home, all of that. people are able to adapt.
Definitely.
But for you, so I know you mentioned your podcast. Can you give a little bit? What is your podcast?
My podcast is called The Rainbow Remix, and I started it with a friend of mine who lives in England. I met her here, and she used to do a show called The Lesbian Lounge, which reached out to the LGBTQ community, particularly the women. And I had been a guest on her show, and she had that years ago, like in the early 2000s. So when we were in lockdown, and I saw where that little Saturday night show I was doing was reaching the whole world, I said, I called her up. Her name is Denise Warner. And I said, hey, Denise, I'm thinking about doing a podcast because I've now discovered Zoom and the magic of reaching the world with that. And I'd like to have you on as a guest. And the more we talked about it, she said, why don't we co-host? And we thought, how cool would that be? Because we're co-hosting from two different sides of the world. So that started like in September of 2020, and we've been going since then. And it's been quite an interesting journey. She was able to reach back and get some of the guests from when she had her show. It was actually called internet radio back then. I don't think podcast was a word back then, but we used, she was reached into her files, and we started out, we were able to kickstart with those guests. And then, we've built it since then. And it was just really nice to see how we could just reach so many people. Like I said, I mean, we're literally, I'm sure you experienced this. She's in one time zone, I'm in another, and we might have a guest. One time we had a guest in Bulgaria, or we might have a guest in Scotland, or a guest in LA. So we have to write all the different time zones down for the one show. But it's been fun.
No, it definitely sounds like it. I'll drop some links for your podcast in the description of this one as well. But yeah, time zones are always so sometimes tricky, especially like I've had guests like in Australia and all that. So it's like 12 or 14 hours ahead of us. So no, I definitely feel you on that. That's why I've become better with like knowing when time zones are. Because like someone asked me about a time zone like the Philippines, I was like, oh yeah, it's this amount of hours. And like, oh, how'd you know that? And I go, oh, I have a podcast, so I have to know time zones.
Yeah, I usually leave the world clock up to Denise, but basically the premise of our show is arts and entertainment community and the LGBTQ community. So that's pretty much our focus.
Definitely, yeah. No, it sounds. I really like the theme of it, and I'm definitely going to check that out. And again, the links will be in the description as well. Now,
thank you.
Of course. And now I want to focus on you a little bit now. So you're a guitarist, as I said in the intro. So how did you get started, and who was like your inspiration to start playing guitar?
Initially, like from an early age, my grandma, because I came from a musical family, and every one of us, like kids, needed to learn the piano. We were required to learn the piano. By the time we were like 7 years old, we were getting lessons. So the piano was like the main focus of the first instrument that we would play. But my grandma played the ukulele, and I was a little kid, and I could hold that in my hands better than a guitar. And she taught me how to play songs on the ukulele. So I kind of had a taste for it back then. And then I didn't play guitar till I was in my 30s. I didn't actually like pick up a guitar and play until I started writing music. Even in my first band, I was playing drums, and then I fronted as a singer. But I really learned guitar as a necessity to write music and then to perform that music, because I started out after I became, I wasn't doing the covers, and I was trying to do shows playing original music as a songwriter. And I had a CD out. I needed to now promote that. So I was playing in coffee houses, and we used to have bookstores down here that no longer exist, where they had a corner of the bookstore was like a little cafe. So I was playing in those places as well. And they really didn't pay very much. You were either playing for tips or you were playing for like $50. So suddenly I didn't have a band because I wasn't paying anyone. So I had now a mother is the necessity is the mother of invention, they say. So I was now needing to learn how to play the guitar more proficiently than just to write music. So I started playing, and I learned how to play guitar that way, out of a necessity to play my original music out.
I didn't know that, actually. Most of that, actually, when you started playing guitar, and out of a necessity. But I know that necessity. Obviously, you're still playing guitar, so obviously you have a passion, interest for it. Was
Yeah.
it was it a little bit of like a learning curve? Like, because I know many people I've talked to started when they're like teenagers, early 20s. Was there a learning curve for you starting in your 30s?
Most definitely it was a learning curve. And what I did initially when I started booking gigs to play my original music is I did hire one guitar player from my band to be like my training wheels. So he played with me, and that's how I was learning. So that way he was there to have my back, so in case I messed up, he got the right chord in there. And then after about 6 months of doing that, he pushed me out. I did it on my own, and then I just went out and did it. But I still consider myself a singer songwriter who accompanies myself with the guitar. I don't really consider myself a guitarist, but I play enough that I can get the message across, and get the music out, which was my main focus and my goal to do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In your first show without your training wheels, without the other guitarist, were you nervous? Were you prepared? How were you feeling?
I was super nervous. I was literally shaking a little bit getting out there and doing it alone. I mean, the thing that probably helped me more than anything was the fact that I had a pretty good repertoire already built up from when I played with the band. So I was able to throw some covers in there, and I was comfortable. I was more comfortable with the covers at that point than I was with my original music. So it kind of like helped me segue into playing my own songs. And it just eventually that stage fright from that went away, and it just took off. And it was something I actually preferred to do for a while, because it was nice to get the message of my original music out, and get the feedback from people who were actually listening to the lyrics.
Definitely, for sure. And I know you said, you just said, the message in your music. I did want to talk about that because, going through your music, and, all the military base you performed at, the LGBTQ plus events you played at. So, like, what is the message you want to tell people through your music?
I like to always promote the idea of daring to dream, like to never feel like there's a reason why you can't have a dream. Like, people always put limits on themselves, I think. Like, I'm too old. It's not my field. I went to school for something else, so I shouldn't try this. There's a million reasons why people, especially women, I find women, like, say, in their 40s and older, feel like some of them have raised families, or they're already in a career that they started, but they might have a dream to be a singer or be a writer. And sometimes we hold ourselves back by limitations. So a lot of my songs are about pushing the envelope and going for your dream, or getting into a place where you might not be comfortable, but you go there anyway because you have a goal and a mission. And I also like to be philanthropic with my music. So I've written quite a few songs with the mission of promoting a cause that I believe in. So I wrote Shelter from the Shame, was a song I wrote for an organization to make awareness and to help stop domestic violence. And A Brand New Angel I wrote for my friend that passed away from breast cancer, and I then used that song to play for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life events, and I toured Florida playing for that. So I like to try to also link my songs with a way I could help other people.
Yeah, it's that connection that I know we were talking about, before a little bit, but in a different way of just the connection and getting the message out there, like through these different organizations, charities, and all that stuff. and to match the music up to the themes of it, I think is really important and truly incredible as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a wonderful synergy to it's a win-win. You get out there, you write a song, and to know that you have touched someone's life and possibly changed it for the better is a feeling that it's priceless. You can't explain that. Just in particular, one story of a song I wrote, Shelter from the Shame. We did a video for that song, and we did a single as a fundraiser for this organization to stop domestic violence. And I did a show, and there was a woman at that show that apparently got a CD, and I never met her. And about 3 years after that show, I got an email from her saying that she got a CD at my show, and she specifically bought that one because she was in an abusive relationship at the time. And she said, your song, Shelter from the Shame, not only helped me get out of that abusive relationship, but I went on to work with an organization that started a shelter to help women and children who are victims of domestic violence in another state. So she moved to another state and she started this. So it was so amazing to know that. And I really appreciated her reaching back and letting me know, because I never met her. I don't know who she is till today. So it was just nice to get that information.
It definitely is. And again, the connection, between you and that person, even though you've never met, never saw each other in real life, but the impact your music had on her to get out of the abusive relationship, to actually help people in that situation, that's truly amazing.
Yeah, that was for me, because I'm an independent artist in South Florida, and to reach someone that way was just really, I can't even explain the feeling of, like that's the goal and you accomplish that, and so I hope there are other stories like that. I would hope that song helped other people as well.
It's the impact you have, to better someone's life, and not even, seeing it right away, or, hearing the stories right away. But it's truly incredible to hear that. And just the impact you had to better someone's life is amazing.
The interesting thing about that also, Matthew, is that the day I got that email, I was on a trip back from a show that we played that was about 4 hours away. It was in Lakeland, Florida. And it was supposed to be this big music festival that, as a band, we were supposed to get management from this performance. So we went over there with big hopes, and I paid for everything. I paid for all of the travel expense, because to me it was an investment in the band. I paid for everyone's rooms. I paid for everyone's meals, travel, whatever. And we get there, and the whole thing was a complete scam. So here we are playing on a stage. There was no one at this festival. The people that supposedly were running this festival were nowhere to be found. The guy that was having conference calls with me, that it sounded like I was talking to, Atlantic Records, none of it was real. So we leave and we're driving home, and I was embarrassed about bringing my band to this and making everyone travel 4 hours. I was angry that this happened. I was frustrated. It was just really hurtful on top of everything, because you feel like, what am I doing? That's how I felt at the time. Like, what am I doing? I'm driving. We were coming back. I wasn't driving. I was sitting in the back of the truck, and I'm like, at the time I had an SUV, and I was like, why am I even doing this? What's the point? Like, it's more heartache than anything. And, you deal with rejection, you deal with disappointment. And it's just like, that was one step too far, because I dragged everyone with me on this one. And while I'm sitting in the back of the SUV and we're driving down the road coming home, I get that email. I check my email. So the question of why am I doing this just brought me right back to, wow, that's the reason, forget what happened just now, because that just made everything different. So yeah, you have moments. I've had many moments of that where I was just ready to give up, and something happened to pull me back in and say, this is what you're meant to be doing.
it's those moments in life, they always seem to come at like the opportune time, like something horrible, like, a scam festival, but then you get an email like that you positively impacted someone's life. It does balance out, and it is the reason, it's the reason I do my stuff. It's the reason you play music. And it does happen at the best times when things like that, with things like that.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's sadly not the first time I've heard about a festival that not happening. And it always makes me mad. I'm not even part of it, any of those stuff. But it's sad when that happens.
It is, because people try to profit on someone else's dream. So it's crushing in many, many ways.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that bothers me about, like, there's some great festivals go on, but then you hear stuff like that and it makes you like question, like, the music industry, or like the promoters and all that stuff, and it just negatively affects the whole like entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm. And that's why the reason, as artists, I think I'm not the only one that you sometimes ask yourself, why am I doing this? Like, why do I put myself through this? I could be just relaxing and going to a movie or watching someone else play music. And why am I here? And then something happens to show you. I know it always happens like that for me. So yeah, I hope it keeps happening.
I hope so for you as well. And it sounds like, again, those moments definitely outweigh all the events, like the other things that do happen.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely worth it. But for you, I did want to cover this. You've done so much great work for our troops, going to the U.S. military bases, domestically and overseas. How did you start getting involved with the U.S. military and our troops?
The interesting thing about that, Matthew, is I did not get involved because I was in the military or anyone I knew was in the military, or even because of one of my patriotic songs. I got involved in performing for the troops through that song, Shelter from the Shame, because there was an Army wife at Fort Hood, which is a pretty big, one of the biggest Army bases in the country, in Killeen, Texas. And I got an email from her, and she said, would you like to come and perform Shelter from the Shame at Fort Hood for our event called Stand Down Day, which was an event that they closed the whole base for one day, and it was to bring awareness to domestic violence in the military. So I said, sure, I would love to come and do that. So I went there and I performed the song, and I met so many wonderful people in the military, both our men and women in the military and their families. So after I performed that song, they invited me back to perform another show. And that just started me performing at the bases all around the country and overseas, a couple of times overseas. So it was always interesting to me that I started playing the bases because of a song about domestic violence that was not anything to do with the military. But from those experiences, I wrote Thanks to the Brave, and I wrote all the other songs that came after that in support of our troops and their families.
It's really interesting. We talked about Shelter for the Shame. We talked about that and, like, the impact it had on someone else. But then, to make the connection to the military with that same song, it is cool, again, how music, it has, like, the themes just happen to apply to many different things. I think that is really awesome.
Oh, definitely. It's amazing, the power of music.
It definitely is. It's universal language, is what I like to say, because there's people who I've talked to many different people, and the music, even they travel overseas and stuff, the people who don't speak English are still connecting with the songs and actually singing back to the bands. It's so cool to have like moments like that happen, and that it connects people from different countries with different languages and everything, that it's that connection.
Oh, definitely. It's a beautiful thing. It's magical.
It definitely, that is a great word to use. It definitely is magical.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, and this kind of goes along with the U.S. military base a little bit. So you had the opportunity to perform at the Indianapolis Colts halftime show at Lucas Oil Stadium, which being from Indiana, I think that is cool.
Oh,
I'm from South Bend. So how did you like prepare for the show, and how was it performing at Lucas Oil Stadium?
that was such a great experience. And it all came from, I put that song, Thanks to the Brave, on a site for called Music for the Troops, where the troops could go on and take the music for free. So it was out there, and I had it on a few different sites like that. And I get an email one day from a girl that says, I'm a professional cheerleader, but she didn't tell me what team. So in my mind, I was thinking she was a cheerleader for a college team, because I never thought the NFL would be reaching out to me. And so I'm assuming it's a college or whatever. And I said to her, she asked me if she could have my song without the main vocal on it, like a karaoke version, so she could sing it for a tour they were doing for the troops. They were doing a USO tour, and they were going overseas. So I said, sure, I need to get some information from the person that's in charge of this tour. So so the woman calls me, and it comes to find out that it's the Indianapolis Colts and it's the NFL. And I was like, oh my God, it's the NFL. So the woman said, it was so nice. And she said to me, look, if you make a video, we'll play it behind Allison. That was a cheerleader that was singing my song. And that will promote you, and make sure you put your contact information in the video somewhere. And that was their thank you to me. So I made a video, and they went and did the tour, and she just really appreciated it so much that they then invited me to play a halftime show at a home game. And I couldn't believe it actually happened, because it was a few months of talking about it and planning the logistics of getting me there until it actually was all, in place, and the plan was there. And it was it was surreal. And I'm not a football fan, so, I just watch, I've seen it on TV, right? So it was so surreal to come out through the tunnel and walk around the perimeter of the field and look to my left and see the game, like right there going on in front of me. And even not being a football fan, it was amazing to me. It was just a really amazing 15-minute moments of fame, or, it was gone in a minute. Like, it was 15 minutes of coming on the field, walking around, going and singing my song, and then you're off the field, because the halftime shows are shorter when they're not televised. That wasn't a televised game. But anyway, it was just an amazing, really just surreal, once in a lifetime thing. The thing that was so special to me was I was invited to play my song, my original song that I wrote with my co-writer, Keith Ridenauer. We sat down, and I told him about my tour and how I felt, coming after meeting all the people, and the moms and dads, and the husbands and wives, and the men and women in the military. And to know that experience that moved into a song I was getting to sing in a football stadium, there had to be like 60,000 people there that day, was something I couldn't think about and get nervous about until it was done. I got super nervous and sick to my stomach when I got back to the hotel. I don't know, like I was just on autopilot the whole time until it was over. And I went back to the room, and I was just like totally sick to my stomach, like I should have been before the show. So it was a great, great experience.
It sounds like a wonderful experience. I know I've been to the Lucas Oil Stadium a few times. It's a great looking stadium, but it's huge. It's a huge stadium.
Yeah.
And to have it like everything kind of hits you like after the show. You get up into it, and then afterwards is when it finally like sunk in, like everything that went down.
The thing that made me so extra nervous that day was all the planning and conversations I had going on before. They told me it's a very quick show, so we'll introduce you and you just start singing the song. You don't need to say anything. But the morning when we did a dress rehearsal, we did like a dress rehearsal like at 7:00 in the morning. They say, why don't you say a few words? And I'm like, oh my God, I could have planned this for like, months leading up to this. And now I got to think of something in the next few hours. So from that moment till the time I actually went on, I was like going through everything in my head of what I wanted to say before. And it might have been better that way, that it happened that way, because I didn't even have time to stress about it. I just needed to do it. So yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
It's more organic, like when
Yeah.
stuff like that happens. So no, it sounded like a great experience. I'm glad you're able to, they invited you, the NFL invited you, and you're able to perform, your own original music. Truly incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I know we've been talking a lot about music, moments from your music career, and we've talked about a lot of great ones. What are some of your most favorite that we haven't discussed yet?
I think getting to go to Guantanamo Bay was an amazing thing for me, to travel to a base that was right next to Cuba. I mean, we got a tour of the base. We were there. We did a Memorial Day weekend show. So we were there for the weekend, and we got to see, they have an area that's a memorial area for the people that didn't make it coming over, from all these countries where they try to come over to get to the base, because once they get there, they have amnesty, so they can come and they're safe when they make it there. But they have the actual boats, like they show you, and they're not boats by any means. It's like a rowboat with a car motor in the middle, and they have signs next to it telling you there were like 50 people on this tiny little boat, and how many people didn't make it. So it's like a very it's just so touching to see that what people do to get into this country of ours, the risks that they'll take. Women are pregnant and they get on these boats, makeshift boats, to come into this country to have their freedom, was really very moving. It was such a powerful thing to see, what people in other lands go through, just to come here where we are so fortunate to have our freedom.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, they take it for granted a little bit of, living in this country, and all the things we experience here. That people are trying, so desperately to get here through, means of like that, a very makeshift boat. I've seen people like make cars and trucks, make like
Oh
pontoons
yeah,
for them.
yes,
So and try to, which it's not safe. Trying to get over here, the risks they take to make it here.
exactly. It was really very moving. My dad was an immigrant from Sicily during World War II. And so I grew up with a great appreciation for this country because of him telling us our whole lives how lucky we are to live here, and that, what he didn't have where he came from. Especially, he was in war-torn Italy, so they didn't really have much of anything. But my grandmother was originally born in Tampa, Florida. And then when she was like 2 years old, they moved back to Sicily. So when the war was over, she was able to come here because she was really an American citizen. And it was, we saw that firsthand then, seeing this area on the naval base, to see what people will risk to come here.
Definitely, and I think looking at like the big picture of everything, that with everything, the risk that people take, just to get here is incredible, and it just shows how lucky I was born and raised here, and how lucky I am to be here.
Yes, definitely.
So a very very cool moment. I didn't really know, wasn't too familiar about any of that, so thank you so much for sharing it, because it really gives you perspective on life.
It does. It really does. My whole experience traveling to bases and meeting the people I met was something that was such a gift for me. And I had so many of these people thanking me for what I did to come and perform. And I can't thank them enough for their sacrifice. And so, yeah, that's probably the best. All of that military touring was probably the most the most meaningful of everything I've done with my original music.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. And thank you so much for sharing those great stories, especially for me not being very familiar with that. Just hear those stories really does move me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate you asking.
Of course. And as I'm kind of wrapping up this interview, so JD, what are your plans for the rest of this year?
Well, I have started working on a show that I'm going to be doing in October 14th at Arts Garage in Delray Beach, Florida. And I am so excited for this show because it is the first all original show I'm going to be playing. And the premise behind this whole show is it's a story of my life through my music. And I can't wait to do this. I'm writing a biography in the form of what they call a zine, which is like a magazine. So it's not quite a book because I don't have time to write a book between now and then, but it's going to be my life and my journey with music, and the songs tell most of the story. So I'm so excited for the show. We started working on this like 2 months ago. And going forward, we're going to be tightening things up, and I just can't wait to hopefully take that on the road.
That sounds really awesome to hear. I look forward to checking that out when it's fully completed. But again, the universal language is music, and just to connect with that, to tell a story through your music and through the zine, I bet it's going to turn out really awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Of course, but if anyone's curious, where can they find you and follow you online?
The best one-stop shop is jddanner.com, and that's my website. And then there'll be connections to all of my music. All my music is on the website, and then also to my social media. Everything's there at jddanner.com.
Right on. I'm going to leave some links in the description with the website link as well. Please check out Stream Support. Give a like to JD Danner. You had some great things in the work. I definitely look forward to seeing them fully complete later this year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you, Matthew.
Of course, for JD Danner, I'm your host as always, Matthew Thomas. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Super Cool Radio. And remember, stay frosty.